That is... Hi, guys. Just waiting for Mum to vomit up some worms for them to eat. How delicious. This is just too awesome. Oh, wow. 3 little Hadeda chicks. So sweet. And obviously they cannot fly yet at all. Now I'm just going to, while you look at them, I'm going to open my bird app and find out how long it takes them to fledge. So cool. That is just wonderful. Hadeda. Isn't that sweet? And you might just be able to hear them. They're also going... I haven't quite found their deeply, deeply offensive call. Right, development and care of young. Hatching synchronous over a period of 5 days, blah blah. 3 clutch of eggs. 27 days from start of nest building, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. At 7 days, most feathers have emerged. At 15 to 16 days, feather on lower neck and head emerge. At 27 days, fully feathered. So these chaps, I suppose, are not quite at that age. Probably not quite at 27 days yet. Let's say that they're 20 days old. Nestling period 30 to 40 days. Mass at fledging 500 grams. They weigh half a kilogram only, everybody. That's a pound when they fledge at about 40 days. So in a month, they're ready to fly from the nest. Oh, it's just wonderful. Look at the light catching them. I don't know if you can hear also, they're going... That's the noise they're making. And there's something about this, there's something about watching little birds in a nest that is just too special. I guess it adds to the reason that we love spring so much. There's just something about watching new life growing that is so very special to us as human beings. And I suppose, you know, what it gives us, of course, is some kind of connection with these birds. We understand that the mother there, it could be the father, easily, but we understand that, especially with the birds, that feeling that those birds have towards their youngsters, the complete dependence and the very clear care, attention, and, dare I say it, love that the parents give to their little chicks. Grishel, you're wondering how often they have to be fed. Grishel, they probably are fed at least 3 or 4 times a day. So they eat mainly insects and earthworms, but they will eat a variety of invertebrates and vertebrates, sometimes mollusks, so snails and things, sometimes reptiles. But I think it's largely insects, and certainly in Johannesburg, the food from dog bowls. Definitely are not getting any food from dog bowls in this part of the world. Ellen, you're looking at the size of the Hadeda nest and you say, how big is it and how deep is it? I think, Ellen, it's probably about, it's pretty big. It's probably about 2 feet across. And it's not very deep. It's quite a shallow thing. It's probably about, I don't know, let's say 6 inches deep. So if those things stick their heads down, they will be invisible. They're very, very demanding. Fighting with each other, begging from each other. And their little beaks, you see, their beaks have still obviously got a huge amount to grow, because they would do themselves some serious damage if they weren't blunted and stunted in the nest there. Now, the Hadeda that we saw flying off, I think was almost certainly one of the parents gone off on a foraging sortie. And when it returns, then this one will fly off and do the same. So they probably actually feed more than 3 or 4 times a day. It's probably up to 6 times a day. Let me just go back to the app there. Oh, David, while we're looking at something there that it looks fairly distasteful to try and eat, you're wondering about the sense of smell, which of course is intimately woven into the sense of taste. David, the answer is absolutely birds have a sense of smell, and some birds, especially birds like the Andean condor, for example, or various New World vultures, and the obvious example here is the marabou stork. They find their prey entirely on smell. So yes, they do definitely have a sense of smell. I'm sure it does vary from species to species, though. I'm just quickly looking if there isn't anything else I can tell you about this process of birthing the youngsters. At 35 days it'll be able to fly, so 40 is when they leave home. It leaves the nest area at about 50 days and is fed by the adults up until it's 60 years old. And James, you're wondering about how long or what chances they all have to survive. Well, it says here, average success of only 50%. So 1.5 of those will survive. 1.5 will not. So about, yeah, it says 50% here. But much of this, much of the studies on the Hadeda have been done in suburbia because they're hugely successful in suburban areas. So I suspect that there are probably fairly large inaccuracies when it comes to Hadedas of the wilderness. I would have said 50% was probably roundabout right, and I'll tell you why. I think that nest is not particularly difficult for a predator to come at. And I mean, were a gymnogene to come flying past here, an African harrier hawk, or, well, a monitor lizard or something like that, those chicks would be devoured very quickly. They're not exactly in a hidden position. I'm so sorry, Lucy. The game drive radio exploded into my ear. We're going to have to get your question again. Lucy, you're wondering if birds ever neglect their children, and what about other animals? Well, I suppose they do sometimes, yes, especially if they happen to be male. But birds are generally very good parents, both male and female. They tend to look after their youngsters quite well, except, of course, the female... Yeah, no, there's another nest here. There's a hornbill nest here. Look, Bengal, ready? That really is very cool indeed. All the while hoping that Hosanna might come wandering past. But I don't think that's going to happen today. Sheldon, you want to know, is another wonderful question that often gets asked about birds, mainly because as human beings we like to hear when animals behave like this. You say, do they breed for life? The answer is probably almost for life. They're monogamous, but whether that means that they have the same partner continuously, I don't know. It says here monogamous solitary nester, probably with a long-term pair bond. So remember, monogamous mustn't be confused with lifelong bonds. So we know that Egyptian geese, for example, and Wahlberg's eagles have very long-term bonds, probably almost for life. But that doesn't preclude them, at least it does preclude them having any other partners. But some birds are monogamous breeders each year, so they will find a new partner every year and get hitched up, if you like, and produce some youngsters, and then they'll move on. I think the weavers would be a good example of that. Look at that funny little thing. But you can also be monogamous and have a short-term bond, like the weavers. Then I suppose you can be polyandrous, and you can have a number of different partners. So in terms of the Hadeda, they are monogamous, but not necessarily for life. Long-term bond, but it isn't necessarily the whole life long. Very good.